Hi, welcome back to the How Did You Learn to Do That podcast with Anjaz and Mohammed. I'm so excited to welcome you back to the podcast where I'll share the truth behind the consulting nest, my journey so far, and in real time building in public. So you get to know me, you get to know what it's like to be an entrepreneur, you get to hear all about my trials, my failures, my successes, the good, the bad, the ugly, everything in between of me building the consulting nest, me being a mother, an employee as well, and just the whole journey from start to finish and answering any questions you might have as we're going through this journey. And if you really are interested in learning more, ask you to please subscribe to our newsletter. You can find our newsletter on our website, or you can follow me on LinkedIn under Jasmine Mohammed. You can also go to howdidyoulearntodo.com to access our newsletter link as well. And once you subscribe to the newsletter, you'll get alerted for when new podcast episodes drop every week. And you get to hear about any questions and provide feedback and connect with me and let me know what you'd like to hear. You can also subscribe to us on YouTube and all podcast channels where you listen to your podcasts. So let's get started. So, last episode, I talked about sort of why I took a pause and what's to come. And so this episode is the beginning of the journey in building the consulting nest and sort of how the idea came to be, what I did to think through the idea, the concept, how to start it, how to build it, and some of the experiences that I had. And so let's just start from the beginning. So, as you know, I had this podcast, How Did You Learn to Do That? And I was really looking at when I first built it, I wanted to build it just to share inspirational stories of people in our community, people around us that were building practices personally, they were building businesses, they were just doing all these really incredible, interesting things. And I wanted to ask them the exact question of this podcast. How did you learn to do that? What sort of came to be? How did you start? Really just hearing their full story. And through that journey, I started realizing that I really loved career coaching. I love connecting with people, helping them and motivate them in their careers and their journeys. And so I built the successful candidate and I started working with clients. And what I realized was a lot of the clients had so much to offer. And they had these jobs and they were looking for something more fulfilling. They were looking for something a little more exciting. Or maybe they were looking for a shift in their lifestyle. They didn't necessarily want to work full time anymore. They wanted to go part time. I have a lot of people that say that they were struggling with the balance with having kids or having parents or grandparents they needed to look after, or even just wanting to spend more time with loved ones or taking care of themselves and their own mental health. And that full-time work constricted to a 9 to 5 was not sufficient for them anymore. But they didn't know where else to go. They didn't know what kind of jobs provided them the flexibility of part-time work or working the hours that they wanted to, even though those are unconventional hours. And a lot of these people, they had invested tons of money and years in obtaining master's degrees, some of them PhDs, bachelor's degrees, and they didn't want that to go to waste. They still were passionate about the field of work they were in, the field that they studied in, but they just wanted something a little more that fulfilling, but also fit their lifestyle that they wanted. And so in that journey, I really couldn't help them find a traditional career path or a traditional job as an employee that fit the picture or fit the bill for them. And so I started thinking about the fact that I was a consultant. Thinking about the fact that when I built my consulting business, I sort of thought contracts would just come to me, right? But in reality, you have to do the networking. You have to put yourself out there. You have to promote yourself. You have to meet people. You have to tell them what you do, what you don't do. You have to submit requests for proposals, RFPs, which I'll talk about that in a minute. Um, it was a lot of legwork, a lot of work that many people did not want to do. They didn't have the capacity to do it. They didn't have the will to do it because they were just managing with very limited time as it was. And they wanted an easier way. And so that's where I decided, hey, like this idea that I actually had in 2016. So I came up with the idea in 2016, and I thought, why isn't there a marketplace for public health consultants that is seasoned, vetted, and it's elevated. It's not your Upwork that's a public-facing marketplace where, it's busy. There's lots of different options, lots of different career paths. Lots of different people doing different things. And it's sort of hard to stand out. And again, requires a lot of work on your part of sort of reaching out and requires a lot of work on the organization side of filtering through and running reviews and proposals and all of that with many different people and not really knowing if what you were getting was successful. And so that's where the idea of this marketplace came to be. I wanted to build a marketplace where we could have our consultants be seasoned and vetted, which means that they had to go through an assessment in order to be a part of the marketplace. I needed to make sure that they were a fit. And then also have organizations share when they're looking for a consultant through our marketplace. And it wasn't that I was matching them through the marketplace or curating certain opportunities to certain consultants. It was just open to all consultants would have a listing and every organization can see who they are. And everybody also can see what opportunities were being posted for proposals. We actually, and I've taken a really big stance on saying no to RFPs, no to requests for proposals, and here's why. Requests for proposals are very lengthy. They require a lot of work. They require you to essentially write a 10 to 12 page um, outline and report of in detail of how you're going to approach the project, who you are, what you bring to the table, your pricing, your budgeting, references, examples of work. And it takes a lot of effort and capacity to actually create those. And in general, they do pose a barrier, and they're not equitable at all. They do pose a barrier because if you are an individual consultant and you are competing with consulting firms, it's not fair because consulting firms have people that are qualified and skilled in writing proposals, and you are trying to do your work as a consultant, and now you also have to do business development, which is a lot of work. I wanted to build a marketplace for people that may want to still work full time and may want to consult on the side, or may want to have a different lifestyle and do consulting because that fits their lifestyle better, but they still have other commitments. I wanted to make it as easy and as barrier free as possible. And that's why we decided not to allow any RFPs on the marketplace. So when I say that, I mean that organizations can post when they're looking for a consultant, but what they require from the consultants is a brief 1 or 2 page proposal of just who they are at a high level, how they're going to engage, and the timeline of the work and how they'll actually do the work, and a brief overview of their pricing structure, and any examples of work they may have, but at a high level. Um, and then the organization can decide at that point if they'd like to move forward. They could do an interview with with the consultant. But proposals in general don't take a lot of effort. They don't take a lot of time for folks to complete. They can be done, quickly and easily, and it gives them a real opportunity to connect with the organization, as opposed to spending all this time writing out an RFP. And so I wanted to run a beta test, but we'll talk about that in the next episode because that's when I ran the beta test in the first 6 months of launch. But when I started working on this idea in May of 2021, I decided, hey, let's just start the idea. Let's start thinking about it. I started working with my mentor, Jason. And one of the big things that he always said to me was to really analyze sort of like what is your value proposition? What are your differentiating factors? What are competitors doing in this space? And doing that, he really helped me filter out my ideas and what it is that I really wanted to do. One of the really important things he said to me was that as entrepreneurs, we might get stuck in the technology of it, the building phase of it. But what we need to do is we need to build a what's called a minimum viable product or an MVP, and we have to do that as as the most cost-effective way as possible. Which means we don't need to go out and spend a ton of money hiring developers, designers, building out wireframes with us, or these really complex tech-backed tools, or websites that are really complicated. He said you just need to build something to help sort of test the idea out, and you need to focus all your efforts on sales, connecting with the community, connecting with organizations, connecting with consultants, and just seeing sort of where the challenges and pain points are, and then building your next version after that. And so I had a meeting with him and his chief technology officer from his company. And I was told that there is an option to build on what's called no code platforms, which was something brand new to me. I had no idea these existed. And, they said, just go do a search, see what other companies are out there that are building no code platforms for marketplaces, and just see what you can find. And that's exactly what I did. And so what I did was I went and looked at different companies that were building no-code platforms for marketplaces. There's obviously a lot. You're never going to find one that's perfect for you. But the one I found that worked for me was a company called ShareTribe. ShareTribe is out of, I think, Finland, I want to say. Actually, it's Helsinki. Is that in Finland? I'm pretty sure it is. It was from Finland, and what they were doing was building a marketplace, but it was a product-based marketplace, no-code platform, which means that it was built that sort of like your Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist, where you post a product you want to sell, and then you can send it to the client, and when once the financial transaction goes through the marketplace. Once they receive the product and they're good with it, and they'll, say yes, received, and then the funds get issued out to the seller. Now, that's not exactly how a service-based marketplace works, but I thought, for a minimum viable product, it's good enough. So I built it. I was able to have about Actually, that's the next episode. I got to be careful when I'm jumping ahead because I don't want to confuse you. But what I did is, so I kind of was testing out the marketplace, looking at it, looking at how to build a website. I really wanted to have my messaging clear. And it was in October of 20, end of September of 2021, where my family and we took a trip to Whistler. And I had my laptop with me because I was still working at my day job for that day, that Friday. Um, and Jason, I'm a public sector worker, so I tend to have longer timelines to get things done. Just given the complexities of the public sector, often, take like 3 to 6 months to do something. And I met with Jason in September and I shadowed him for the day. And he said to me, he goes, "So when are you going to get the website and the marketplace done?" And I said, in about 6 months. And he kind of laughed and he said, "And Jessa, you need to get it done. And you need to get it done by the next time we meet, which is in 2 weeks." And we were meeting in 2 weeks. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I knew this trip was coming up. And I was like, how am I going to get this done in 2 weeks? This is insane. And so I kind of like wallowed for about a week and a half, kind of like thinking, thinking, thinking. And then it just kind of the universe presented an opportunity for me to do it, to build it. We were in Whistler. It was our first night. My daughter was really tired, so she went to bed early. And my husband decided, I'm gonna go to bed early too. So they were in bed by, I want to say, 6 o'clock in the evening. And so I kind of had a lot of time in the evening to just sit with myself. And I decided what I was gonna do was gonna take a crack at building a website. In an hour, I put up our website, and I was really surprised with myself as well. And about an hour and a half more, I actually started working on the ShareTribe platform. I started putting together what I wanted it to look like. And that evening, I was able to get it done. The next day, I actually did have a meeting with Jason, and I showed him what I did, and he was impressed. He said, "It's amazing. See, you got it done." And I was, impressed with myself that I got it done. I just put my head down and I just did it. And that was sort of the beginning. That was October of 2021. I knew that I knew I didn't want to be on Instagram or Facebook, to be honest, because I have a bit of an unhealthy relationship with social media where I scroll sometimes endlessly, and it's just kind of, I just want to look at what other people are doing in terms of their business or how they're framing things and stuff, but it was taking up a lot of my time. And so I actually did not want to be on Instagram or Facebook, especially because I was burnt out from the podcast and my early days in entrepreneurship and trying to do everything that everyone says on Instagram and Facebook, right? Building out your business. And I wanted to kind of look at where my audience was. And I realized that my audience was on LinkedIn. That's a professional platform. That's where people post professional updates. That's where they post when they're looking to hire for a consultant. That is also where people post and look for opportunities. And so I decided I was going to post on LinkedIn about the launch of the Consulting Nest and what it was. And that sort of took me to the beginning of launching the podcast or launching the Consulting Nest in October of 2021. And sort of how I came up with the idea, sort of the strategy that I took to actually get it done, and what it took me to build it. I did build a website on Squarespace, and the marketplace on Share Tribe. So they're two different places. The website was just a place to share information for organizations and consultants, but also where the assessment or the interview tool was for consultants to see if they're interested. And Share Tribe was where I would then funnel them if they did get access to the marketplace. Um, and so, really, what I did from May to October was I refined the idea that I had, really thought about how I wanted to be, what stances I wanted to take, because you kind of can't do everything at once. I did read a ton of books. I read, Jason recommended these books for me. I read The Monk and the Riddle, which I would recommend to any of you to read if you're interested. It's really, really interesting, and a quick little read. And I think there's a free PDF somewhere online if you look it up. I also did read, I can't remember the name of it. I think it's called Seeing Around Corners. I will link it on the webpage in the show notes as well for you. It was by, I think, Rita McGrath. I have to clarify that. But it was about when you're making decision points, when you have kind of at a fork in the road, and you're in an inflection point and you need to make a decision of which way you're going. And that's sort of where I was at with deciding if I'm going to build something that's for RFPs, and sort of do a catch-all or not. I will say that at the very beginning, my niche was too wide. I was targeting government organization, healthcare organization, academic organization, nonprofit organizations, and really anyone else that was hiring consultants. I wanted it to be for public health consultants, but the organization side, I was casting way too wide of a net, and I had kind of way too many people that I wanted to tackle and kind of share this new marketplace with. I will say that I've had to do a lot of behavior change training, or explaining to people why the current way of engaging consultants through networks or word of mouth was actually not equitable, and give consulting the eliteness sort of strategy or elite feel that it currently has, and how networking and marketing is actually a tool or a skill that needs to be learned. And then a lot of people in the consulting world, they don't have or in the professional public health world, they don't know how to network. And so I wanted to build something that was easier to connect people across the world, to be honest, who are smart people, who are experienced, who are qualified, who you could work with as a consultant in your company to help catalyze your projects and initiatives forward, and to tap into talent you wouldn't normally tap into if you were just looking within your own circle. So that's where we're at from May to October. That's what we did. I came up with the idea, I refined it, I made decision points, I built out the website, and I built out the marketplace. And next episode, I'm going to tell you about our beta test, which is everything that happened from October of 2021 till April of 2022, and how I actually joined an accelerator and incubator program that really helped push my business forward to a place that I never had imagined it to be pushed forward to. And that made me really excited and proud to be a part of. And yeah, I can't wait to share that with you. Like I said, please subscribe to our newsletter so you can hear about every episode when it drops every week. And you can also subscribe to us on YouTube. You can follow me on LinkedIn and send us your messages of what you'd like to hear, what you think of the format of the podcast so far. I'd love to make changes to suit sort of what you're looking for, and to hear more from you. All right, we'll see you next week. Bye.